Check, check, 1, 2. Audio check, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Good.
Good morning. I just signed a request to Congress for critical security, economic, and humanitarian assistance. Ukraine continue to counter Putin's aggression, and at a very pivotal moment. We need this bill to support Ukraine in this fight for freedom, and our NATO allies, our EU partners, paid their fair share of the cost as well, but we have to do this. We have to do our part as well, leading the alliance. The cost of this fight is not cheap, but caving to aggression if we allow it to happen. We either back Ukrainian people as they defend their country, or we stand by as the Russians continue their atrocities and aggression in Ukraine. Every day the Ukrainians pay for the price, and the price they pay is with their lives for this fight. So we need to contribute arms, funding, ammunition, and the economic support to make their courage have purpose so they can continue this fight and do what they're doing. It's critical this funding gets approved and approved as quickly as possible. You know, long before Russia lost it, I made states would respond, predicted they would invade, and they robust military assistance and try to unify the Western world against Russia's aggression. Some aggression. I said I would impose powerful sanctions on Russia, and that we destroy somehow they could continue to move without the rest of the world acting. That we deploy additional forces to defend NATO territories, particularly in the east along the Russian and Belarus borders. It's exactly what we said we would do, and we did. But despite the disturbing rhetoric coming out of the Kremlin, the facts are plain for everybody to see. We're not attacking Russia. We're helping itself against Russian aggression. And just as Putin chose to launch this brutal invasion, he could make the choice to end this brutal invasion. Russia is the aggressor. No ifs, ands, or buts, the aggressor. And the world must and will hold Russia accountable. Russia continued assault is yielding immense human cost. We've seen them leave behind their atrocities and war crimes in the areas they try to control. And as long as the assaults and atrocities continue, we're going to continue to supply military assistance. And I might note parenthetically, you know, there's a dinner this weekend, Celebrate the Press. Think of what the American press has done, the courage it's taken to war zones, the courage it's taken to report every single day. I've always had respect for the press, but I can't tell you how much respect I have watching them under fire, risking their own lives to make sure the world hears the truth. Imagine if we weren't getting that information. It'd be a different world. It'd be a different circumstance. 2 months, Russia launched its brutal attack and has moved weapons and equipment to Ukraine. We've moved weapons and equipment to Ukraine in record speed. The aid we provided, Russian forces have been forced to retreat from Kyiv. Doesn't mean they're not going to try to come back, but they've retreated thus far. We've sent thousands of anti-armor, anti-missiles, helicopters, drones, machine guns, rifles, radar systems, more than 50 million rounds of ammunition. The United States alone has provided 10 anti-armor systems for every Russian, 10 to 1. We're providing Ukraine significant, timely intelligence to help them defend themselves against the Russian onslaught. And we're facilitating a significant flow of assistance to Ukraine from our allies and partners around the world, including tanks, artillery, and other weapons. That support is moving with unprecedented speed. Much of the new equipment in the past 2 weeks has already been where it can be put to direct use on the battlefield. However, that Congress authorized for Ukraine in a bipartisan spending bill last month. Basically, we're out of as it continues to fight. I'm sending Congress authorized for Ukraine in a bipartisan spending bill last month. Basically, we're out of money. And so that's why today, in order to sustain as it continues to fight, I'm sending Congress a supplemental budget request. It's going to keep weapons and ammunition flowing without interruption to the brave Ukrainian fighters and continue delivering humanitarian assistance to the Ukrainian people. This so-called supplemental funding addresses the needs of the Ukrainian military during the critical weeks and months ahead. And it begins with security assistance that's going to help Ukraine deter and continue to defend against Russian aggression. This assistance would provide even more artillery, armored vehicles, anti-armored cities that have been used so effectively thus far in the battlefield by the Ukrainian warriors. You know, and it's going to deliver much needed humanitarian assistance as well as food, water, medicine, aid to Ukrainians displaced by Russia's war, and provide aid for those seeking refuge in other countries from Ukraine. It's also going to help schools and hospitals open. Pensions and social support to be paid to the Ukrainian people so they have something in their pocket. It's also going to provide critical resources to address food shortages around the globe. Ukraine was one of the world's largest agricultural producers. It typically grows 10% of all the wheat that's shipped around the world. Putin has asserted sanctions are blocking food and Russia getting on the market, the sanctions we've imposed on Russia, simply to supplies threatened by Russia with gas, blackmail, and their energy needs in other ways. Aggression will not win. Threats will not win. This is of the imperative for Europe and the world to move more and more of our power needs to clean energy. In the United States, we're doing that right now. Last year, we had wind and battery storage than any year in our history, enough to power 56 million American homes. Earlier this month, we acted to bolster the reliance on our nuclear and generates more than half of our carbon-free power. And we're just getting started. I look at this as a serious problem, but also an enormous opportunity, Bottom lines we've been taking are about the truth, this truth. Investing in Ukraine's freedom and security is a small price to pay to punish Russia and aggression, to lessen the risk for, throughout our history, we've learned that when dictators do not pay the price for their aggression, they cause more chaos and engage in more aggression. They keep moving. The threats to America and the world keep rising. We can't let this happen. Our unity at home, our unity with our allies and partners, and our unity sending an unmistakable message to Putin. You will never succeed in dominating Ukraine. Finally, we're going to continue to deliver critical support to Ukraine, let our guard down in our fight against COVID-19 at home and abroad. That's why I'm again urging Congress to act on my request for $22.5 billion in emergency resources so people can continue to protect themselves from COVID-19. The reason we were so successful in the past is because I was able to work with drug manufacturers to order significant material we needed ahead of time to get in the front of the line. Without additional funding, we can't pre-order the amount of vaccines we need, and we risk losing our spot in line. We're running out of supply for therapeutics, like antiviral pills that we desperately need. Without additional funding, we're unable to purchase the people. We've donated more vaccines and treatments to the world than all other nations in the world combined. If the U.S. won't do it, no one else is really. The United States won't be able to help stop the spread around the world and close off ongoing support disruptions. Look, let's get both of that done. No delays, no excuses, just action, now. Thank you all. Thank you.
Mr. President, what's your message to refugees on
Watch your head, man. You're going to get hurt. Just turn that camera on.
He's a gentleman. Mr. President, I wanted to ask what your message is to Ukrainian refugees on the southwest border and those from the violence.
We have made a direct means by which they can get from Europe, from Ukraine, directly to the United States without going to the southern border. In the meantime, we're trying to work through and make sure that it's an orderly process they're able to get in. But just so you know, we have said there's no need to go to the southern border. Fly directly to the United States. We set up a mechanism with the visa.
Mr. President, thank you. How worried are you by a growing number of Russian comments in the media and among some of their officials painting this conflict as actually already of the US and Russia? They're painting it in very alarmist terms, talking of nuclear weapons, saying it's a life or death struggle, etc. And just separately, or connected to that, already a proxy war, not a direct war, but a proxy war. So are either of those two things true, and do they worry you, those statements?
They're not true. They do concern me because it shows the desperation that Russia is feeling about their abject failure in being able to do what they set out to do in the first instance. And so I think it's more of a reflection, not their failure. And so instead of saying that the Ukrainians equipped with some capability to resist Russian forces, they've got to tell their people the United States and all of NATO is engaged in taking out Russian troops and tanks, et cetera. So it's not an excuse for their failure, but number two, it's also, if they really mean it, it's or the possibility they need to use that. It's irresponsible.
Mr. President, on that, Mr. President, Russia.
Mr. President, back on the border, White House to maintain that policy. Can you give us a straight answer of whether you're going to heed that request or you're going to
eliminate that policy by the end of May? The court has said we can't so far.
Mr. President, you say that this
Says we're going to do. The court could come along and say we cannot do that.
Mr. President, you say that this is not a proxy war, but Russia clearly disagrees. They say that war means war. So how concerned are you that they may start to act accordingly, even if you disagree?
They do.
What options do you have to ensure Poland and Bulgaria have sufficient supplies of gas?
First of all, as you know, Poland has indicated they have planned for, as does, not as much, but as does Bulgaria. And we have worked with our allies from Japan on to say that we may divert oil of the natural gas that we're sending to those countries and divert it directly to Poland and Bulgaria. So that's as much as I can tell you.
Concerned are you about a recession, given the GDP report today showed a contraction of 1.4% in the fourth quarter?
Well, I'm not concerned about a recession. And I mean, you're all a recession, but the GDP, fell to 1.4%. But here's the deal: we're also had last quarter consumer spending and business financial investment increased at significant rates, both for leisure as well as hard products. Number one. Number two, unemployment is the lowest rate since 1970. Record 4.5 million businesses were created last year. We're in a situation where we have a very different view than Senator Scott, a Republican, to raise taxes on the middle-class families and want to include half the small business owners in that. So I think what you're seeing is enormous growth that was affected by everything from COVID and the COVID blockages that occurred along the way. Now, you always have to take a look, and no one is predicting, or some are predicting there may be a recession in 2023. I'm concerned about it, but I know one thing, that if our Republican friends are in doing something about dealing with the economic growth, and they should help us continue to lower the deficit, which we've done last year with $350 billion. They should be with a tax code that is actually one that works and everybody pays their fair share. And they should be in a position where taxes on middle-class folks, you should be raising taxes on people who everyone acknowledges that the vast majority of Republicans aren't paying their fair share. I've said it 100 times. You have major corporations of the Fortune 500 companies made $40 billion last year, didn't pay a single penny. No one under our proposal, making their $400,000 a year, will see a penny in their taxes go up.
Mr. President, about tying COVID aid to Ukraine aid, do you think COVID aid and Ukraine aid should be tied together in legislation?
Well, I don't care how they do it. I'm sending them both up. I mean, they can do it separately.
Mr. President, Majority Leader Schumer said yesterday that you're, quote, getting closer to using executive authority to cancel up to $50,000 in student loan debt. Can you confirm that? Or are you looking to plan to do here in the coming
You mean my
months?
spokesman said that?
Majority Leader Schumer.
Look, number one, first thing we did was the system that was in place that didn't work for anybody, that allowed people to write off debt if they engaged in public service. We have almost 1,785,000, get the number, 700 and some thousand have had debt forgiven, their whole debt forgiven because of their working in either as teachers or other means by which they qualify. And we continue to make, I am considering dealing with some debt reduction. I am not considering $50,000 debt reduction, but I'm in the process of taking a hard look at whether or not there will be additional debt forgiveness and I'll have an answer on that in the next couple weeks.
How high are you looking at?
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much.
guys. Thank you. Thank you,
Thanks,
Mr.
sir.
President.
Thank you, Mr. President.